right, everybody. You told us you wanted more open world chat. Well, here we are obliging you. This is Open World Chat. I'm your host, John Odom, and I'm here with the other host, Mark Card. Mark, you got to go first sometime so I can be the
Yes,
other
yes, I
host.
do need to do that so I can start talking about my co-host.
There you go.
Um, I do want to say thanks to everybody who made us go kind of, for us, semi-viral. We had one of our episodes have 1,200 listeners, and that's massive.
Just short of 1,700, actually.
Wow, so it's gone up. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, whoever linked
So
to us, thanks.
yes, thank you very much. That was very nice of you. So we more of that, please.
Yeah, it was the sociopaths episode, which was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah,
Other
and
than that,
my hypothesis about this is so we got some true crime people just doing a blank search of sociopath, and that somehow ended up getting us linked. So,
yeah, some
to
of
all you true crime podcasters, thank you very much.
it. All right, so today we're going to continue the conversation we started last week, and I was joking about how we could turn the entire podcast over to become a conversation about first contact. And we're not going to do that, but we are going to talk about it again and probably again. We'll see how it goes today. And this is sort of in honor of Disclosure Day coming out, which sounds like is already leaving the theaters. So it's good that we jumped in there while we could, by God. And Mark, you saw it. You liked it?
I did. I liked it quite a bit. It's no movie's perfect, but this is kind of uh, an archetypal Spielberg movie. There's a giant conspiracy going on, and it's not the conspiracy you think it is. There's kind of a revelation at the end about what kind of conspiracy has been held back. It's got some nice, uh, a little bit of fan service. It's got some nice Easter eggs in it, including an Indiana Jones or Easter egg or two. You got to be quick though, because otherwise you won't see it. Um, but it's going to be great.
You know what it should have been? You know what he should have done was a follow-up, either sequel or prequel to Close Encounters. That he would have been able to tell a Disclosure Day story, but in that context, it would have been cool.
Well, they refer to it. They refer to the event of Close Encounters, but it's not quite. It's indirect. It's not direct.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
that's cool. So they thought of
it's
that.
there. There's a lot of interesting references to it. There's a lot of cool found footage in it. It's a pretty good movie. And man, whoever made this movie, the director of photography, the makeup people, the costume people, they made Emily Blunt look even more radiant than in the Devil Wears Prada movies. You can tell that Spielberg and the whole crew have this massive crush on Emily Blunt because she looks unlike she's ever looked in any movie. And you know that terrible, terrible, terrible science fiction movie, Passengers, right?
Right.
It's the same kind of thing going on there. The guy who made that movie, the crew who made that movie, just absolutely love Jennifer Lawrence, and you can tell in that movie this is really kind of a love letter to Emily Blunt too. She's terrific in the movie. She's just really good in
Oh, she's terrific in everything she does. She's great.
it.
Um, so we're going to go continue with the conversation. And I want to say again, just before we start, that once again, our approach is um, not plot first, reaction second. I think I mentioned before how most discussions of First Contact, and there have been so many movies, they come from it as a way, a fundamental element of the plot. We don't have a plot in mind here. We're just trying to look at it just as raw cause and effect. And as such, it's going to be mushy. Especially, we're talking culture here. We're going to start talking about the effect on culture and religion. And neither Mark nor I are theologians or philosophers, although at least Mark is educated. So bear with us on this, but I think there's a lot that will make itself apparent simply from having the conversation, hopefully with the two of us, by using the education we do have to inform, where we think this goes. And I think it's helpful to talk about, and Mark, I know you'll have a sense of, well, we have to talk about what culture is. And again, we don't want to take a whole semester to do this. I mean, and I didn't do much prep before this. I figured we'd just talk, but I did poke around a little bit looking for some sort of salvation. And what I felt, when the dust settled, that, and I don't know, this isn't anything academic I found, but the basics of culture are how we see meaning in our language, in our symbols, in our religion, and our religion pops up a lot here. Our norms, our
Yeah.
morality, which is also our religion and customs, our
Well, not
institution.
necessarily. You can have morality without religion.
Oh, well, that of course I do,
Yeah, me too.
but it ties into that. Our various institutions, including family. We talked about economy last time. Also, that gets us into religion. Technology, right?
Yeah.
And our material lives and identity. Who are we? What's real? I think those are the elements that I think are the sort of bits and pieces of culture. I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, when you get involved in the idea of culture, things become kind of squishy, as you put them. Uh, there's political culture, there's religious culture, there's economic culture, and every society kind of has similar elements to their culture, but those cultures are going to be distinct.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
And it's really interesting to think, as I go down this list, yeah, just how much religion, how much theology has its tendrils in all of it from top to
yeah,
bottom.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's why I think we're framing it as culture and religion. And I think the most fundamental question that gets asked in the case of aliens showing up, and I think this is true regardless of whether they show up as friends, whether they show up as some sort of economic partners, whether they show up as conquerors, is a fundamental question that impacts our culture of who are we?
Yeah, I mean, identity certainly plays a thing here. I want to talk about something I saw in Disclosure Day that was really pretty interesting.
Hmm.
Um, so is not really spoiling very much, but one of the characters in the movie is a novitiate. It's a woman who uh, was in the process of becoming a nun, but left because she's had questions and she didn't feel like she could commit. And so when she finds out what Disclosure Day is about, she calls her former mother superior and says, "Hey, um, so what does it say in the Bible about this? I mean, could there be others? Could there be somebody else?" And she says, "Well, the Mother Superior says, keep in mind, um, Genesis says God says you're the highest on planet Earth, the highest here." So there's an assumption by that statement that there could be other places that God created, which are superior to humans. So it doesn't necessarily, especially Christianity, doesn't necessarily leave out the possibility there could be other humans
Hmm.
or other species. So I mean, it's interesting that she immediately goes to, "Oh my God, what does this mean for my faith?"
Yeah, yeah. And it's
And so I thought that
interesting.
was an interesting perspective that Spielberg he snaps his fingers and deals with it.
Yeah.
And by then it's completely over. For the audience there, I mean, clearly the audience it's the American audience. It's the Christianity is the dominant, religion.
Sure.
And so that's really, I mean, he kind of waves it away. He kind of just says, okay, now we solved that problem. Let's move on to something else. And I
Mhm.
think it would be much, much deeper. I think, you're going to have basically three reactions when you talk about religion to this. And basically, I think some people would, and he addresses this in the movie too, some people would find these new aliens and just immediately start worshiping them.
Right. You're right. I
They
agree.
would
I agree.
see themselves as superior to us in every way. They can travel across dimensions or they can travel across space-time. They had superior kind of technology. So they would immediately just kind of start worshiping them as gods and maybe even, switch. I think another segment of the population would or could abandon all religion to
Yes.
basically.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, most religions just say, hey, we're different, we're special, we're human, there's nobody else like us. And then when you can actually see that there is another species, when you can actually see there is another situation here, then your that theology becomes completely bankrupt.
But
And
then,
what?
but then there's the third group that I'm sure you're about to get to.
The third group, I think, would start a holy war.
Yes,
And
that's
they would
where,
say
yeah.
these people are demonic, they're satanic, they're insert enemy of this religion here, and they would take up arms against them.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is, I don't think this is an all or nothing. I don't think,
No, not at all. And it's interesting that he decided to put this in a Catholic context because that is, she did give the Catholic response. I mean, Pope John Paul II referred to aliens if they exist as children of God. It's
yes,
something that's been talked about quite a bit in a Catholic context. But if he'd picked a evangelical Protestant context, then
right.
who knows, you might have been able to have a much more interesting sort of dramatic reaction and dramatic discussion. But yeah, you're right. It sounds like he just wanted to move away from that.
Yeah, he didn't want to deal with that very much. But the really interesting thing to me about this idea behind religion is I think all three things would happen simultaneously.
I agree.
I think you'd have some people go, "Oh my God, I welcome our alien overlords," or the other people would say, "Yeah, there's no afterlife, there's no religion, Christianity, Islam, Jainism, Zoroastrianism. I think the only thing that comes out clean here is Buddhism."
I think Catholicism does, just based on, what the Pope himself said. I think that would would hold a lot of people on. Not everybody, but a lot of people.
But I do think there'd be a segment of people that would take up arms against these alien invaders based
Yeah.
on religious grounds only.
No, I agree completely. They'd be demons.
And
And
boy, would that cause real problems. I mean, I honestly, it's arguable that this could cause some form of global civil war.
well, and of course, what that means stepping back is that may preclude the possibility of it happening at all. If there are aliens of any, even of our level of wisdom, looking at this and having paid enough attention to the planet, unless they were very committed for some reason or determined in making contact, this is one of the many reasons, contexts in which if I were an alien, I would decide, no, bad idea. Let's hang back and watch them like chimps, but let's not get involved. Yeah, I hate to
Yeah,
say that.
the other kind of alternative that I think sounds interesting is that maybe they would just infiltrate the society until they could completely take it over.
Well, of course, some would say something like that is happening. Or at least, no, infiltrate's too strong a word, but some would say that they are involved in government now. That's one of the flavors of conspiracy theories out there. Just a nod to the conspiracy theorists. We see you, we hear you.
Well, here's something really
Active
interesting.
listening.
Here's something really interesting about the approach the movie took. The approach the movie took was very different. Most conspiracy theories look at um, this as a government conspiracy. The movie doesn't do that. In the movie, the main alien is not government. Government is a tool of the main enemy, the main bad guys. And the tool of the main enemy is of the main organization, which has the information and for 80 years has been protecting the information that we have or hiding the information that we have. There are other sentient life forms, is an NGO,
Interesting.
a non-governmental
Right.
organization, which is tasked by the government to keep all this knowledge. And what's happened is, a spoiler alert, what's happened is there's a guy out there who has stolen it all, who used to
Mm.
work for the NGO. And then you find out that there's a whole segment of people who worked for the NGO who are in on the idea that this information belongs to 8 billion people and we need to release it.
I've had a big chunk of the movie spoiled for me by hearing the frustrations and discussions about, well, 5 seconds and you've uploaded it to YouTube. What's the big deal?
Right.
But that's so I already know too much. But I'm gonna see it. I'm just gonna wait.
Oh, you still should see it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I thought this was going to be uh, much, much more special effects driven, and it's not.
Hmm.
It's not like Close Encounters where you see tons and tons of spaceships. You don't see a lot of the alien spacecraft. You kind
Mhm.
of see references to them and kind of there's a zillion pieces of found footage you see, but you don't really see one. Like, I mean, the one instance where you think, oh, well, he's going to show an alien spacecraft here close up, they don't do it.
Mm.
It's actually masked as something else.
Well, E.T. he kept it down to earth too. So I mean, obviously in a different way. But maybe it's just a sign that he's more interested in the human. Well, he is more interested in the human
Oh,
reactions.
he's definitely more
Yeah.
interested in the human response here.
Yeah.
But don't go in thinking this movie is like uh, Close Encounters because it's not. It's very
Mhm.
different.
Yeah.
I
Um,
mean, by this point in time, the first contact is far done. I mean, basically, it's they're just really trying to keep the information in.
mhm.
So, but yeah, I just think all of these religious elements will happen simultaneously. I think you're going to get a big chunk of people who do one of these things.
Yeah,
What's
I
in, Go ahead.
I think it will get more complicated as it goes because, let's look at the religious folks who accept them, who accept them as children of God. Well, what happens then when they don't acknowledge themselves as children of God? What happens when they come with their own religions? When they
Yeah.
come with their own philosophies in lieu of religions or just lack of religions? Then there starts being conflicts directly with the folks who even accept them because they're
Yeah.
not meeting those expectations. And then you might see more of those folks filter out into the, you know, rejection of religion and, holy war sides of things. Because
Well, that's
that would be a conflict.
one of the characters in the movie. Um, when she finally gets connected with the organization that's going to release all the information, one of the characters thinks Emily Blunt is an alien and is a god. And so she drops down to her knees and makes the signs of the cross and starts to worship her. And she says, "Oh, I am not somebody's deity." And she gets up and she walks out. She said, "I am not going to be somebody's deity." So yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is a problem with a lot of movies, and we talked about this last time. A problem that a lot of movies which deal with this have is they assume too much. So I think two things. One, I think they assume too much uh, aliens are going to be completely ahead of us in every possible way. Technology is going to be ahead of us. They're going to have solved racism. They're going to have solved hunger. They're going to have solved all, they're going to have the Star Trek universe.
Hmm.
Or we assume that they're going to be completely antagonistic toward us. Um, but I think the other thing they assume is that this culture might be unified. The alien culture might be unified.
Right.
The people who got here might be one segment of the alien culture, and
Hmm.
we might be visited by people who are, you know, enemies of that culture that got first contact first. I mean, imagine, if you will, a kind of galactic space race to get to Earth first.
Hmm.
What if two different segments, like with the Cold War in the United States and the mission to the moon,
Right. Be
what
plenty of
happens if
commercial
if
interests you
if
could
a
have on a
more
planet like
warlike
Earth.
or a more peace-like culture of the alien species gets to us first? That could make a
Hmm.
big difference.
I think you have to think about too, something you started to say was the idea that culturally they could be well behind us. I mean, you talk about Star Trek, they could be Klingons. Klingons are
Yeah.
backwards in so many ways. That having an advanced culture does not necessarily, I mean, Roddenberry contradicted himself with this kind of thing
Uh-huh.
a bit because he certainly had plenty of, like the Klingons, like the Romulans, folks who were still bass backwards on what priorities are and how culture should be structured
Well,
in all
and yet,
kinds of ways. And they could show up and they could be freaking barbarians.
well, I mean, look at Roman culture. Roman culture was very warlike, and
Hmm.
they had civilizing elements, but everywhere they went, the impulse was to conquer first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everywhere they went was to impose their culture on to some degree, to less degree than other civilizations. But the Romans didn't really care if you kept your religion, as long as it didn't threaten to upend Rome's authority. The
Hmm.
Romans didn't care if you kept your language, as long as you paid the tribute. So, uh, but just to assume, I can envision a culture where if you do conquer the problems of space-time travel, then of course you might think of, in terms of manifest destiny. We
Sure.
developed this technology, so we deserve to conquer everyone else. We're
They
obviously superior to everyone else.
could be an imperial culture, especially if they're driven by resources. And frankly, I keep coming back to that because Earth is so resource rich. It's easy to imagine an alien culture wanting to come here for that very reason. I
Just
mean,
look
you
at
look
water.
around and there are not many Earths.
Well, not that we've seen.
Not that we've
Um,
seen. I mean, we've got ones, planets that live in that sweet zone.
Statistically, there's probably millions,
Yeah. Oh, sure.
but we haven't found any of them yet.
Yeah.
So,
But probably not a lot. So, of course, that's the Independence Day reason to conquer, right?
yeah, I mean, I mean, it's long before Independence Day. Um, the movie The Man Who Fell to Earth from 71 or 72, I think.
Sure.
They came to get the planet's water resources, but
Hmm.
David Bowie's character, got sidelined by the uh, uh, the trappings of fame, and basically just uh, you know pulled a rock star kind of nihilistic ending for himself.
Hmm.
Man, that movie is so much. That's one of the most interesting first contact movies ever.
Yeah.
It's got some really kind of graphic scenes in it, not graphic sex, just other graphic scenes,
Hmm.
and it's kind of interesting. Um, It's really a different take on it. And speaking of culture, I mean, here's the other thing that people don't really think. Aliens could come here and just worship us as the ultimate culture.
No, and that's an interesting thought. I'm gonna have to chew on that one. Hmm.
It's just entirely possible that
Hmm.
they could come to us, and there's a lot to be said for that. There's a in a reverse way they kind of touch on that in the movie Contact. In the movie Contact, the first message we get other from life in other places is, of course, a video of a broadcast of a Nuremberg rally because
Hmm.
that was the first television broadcast.
Yeah.
And so it scares the scientists to death, of course, because they think, oh no, it's like Star Trek. These guys adopted the Nazi ideology
Hmm.
and the Nazi culture. So, I mean, it could be that they've been watching all our um, broadcasts because, anything we broadcast over the air radiates in all directions simultaneously at the speed of light.
Right.
So, almost 100 years ago, we started broadcasting TV. So, and they will perceive our culture based on however distant they are. If they're 300 light years away, then, well, we're not really going to even get there for a while. But
Yeah.
if they're 10 light years away, then, they're seeing the TV broadcast that we did in 2016.
Right. There was some good shows in 2016 too. Um, so what kind of expectations do you think we would have of an alien species coming? Would we expect them to, would we expect them to be our friends? But if they are our friends, if we're expecting them to be our friends, how, do we expect to assimilate them? Do
Yeah,
we
that's
get
a
a
good
new kind
question.
of
I
melting
don't know.
pot
I mean,
expectation here? The big American melting pot here now as aliens?
I think that depends on how much different they are than we are.
Yeah.
If they're sentient, this depends a lot on physiology. If they're a sentient uh, blob of protoplasm, it might be difficult for us to accept them. If
Mhm.
they look like uh, one of uh, H.P. Lovecraft's creations, then we're probably not going to accept them. Let's say they look like humanoids, but they stink really, really bad, like
Uh-huh. That's funny.
gag reflex uh, kind of stink.
Hmm.
Are we going to accept them? Maybe, maybe not.
I
Uh, you
think
know, it,
our expectations are so strong that they would be humanoids. I think when they wouldn't, because the chances of that are pretty slim, um, I think it would blow apart. Well, I mean, all the religious stuff we were talking about, I think would be fed by it even more. But I think the not meeting of expectations would be like an atom bomb in the middle of our culture.
oh yeah, well, I think even if they're a positive thing, you're going to get a lot of interesting cultural effects. Like language and communication may completely change. So I'll give you a great example of this. You have got to watch this program, damn it. In the three body problem,
Funny problem. You feel like that movie is the nexus of all sci-fi, I tell you.
it really deals really deals with a lot of interesting stuff.
Uh,
The guy who wrote it's definitely a hard science guy,
uh,
and he considers a lot of the cultural things. So as an example, so there's this big conspiracy, and there's a segment of the human population which knows these alien overlords exist and knows they're coming to visit, but they keep it secret, and they have a secret communication system with these aliens, and everything's going great and has been for 40 or 50 years. And then the aliens find out we can lie, we can create fiction. Now the aliens they all communicate telepathically. So there is no hiding your intent. It's impossible to hide your intent. So everyone knows what everyone's thinking and everyone's doing simultaneously. So they decide from there that if you can lie, if you can twist reality, if you can make it so people believe conditions are one way when they're actually another in reality, then you can't be trusted ever.
Mhm.
And so basically what happens is the leader of the people who know what's going on, they start to panic because these overlords, which trusted them completely, now know that we can't be trusted ever. And
So
so
they're like
basically,
the aliens in Galaxy Quest, is what you're saying.
but you know that they just don't they can't fathom what a culture would be like where deception, where fiction, where metaphor exists. And so if we interact with a culture like that, then it's going to be very different.
Yeah.
Um, you know, we may go mad from communicating with them because their speed of communication may be so fast that we can't possibly comprehend it.
Oh,
Or if we
yeah.
try to learn the language, it may drive us insane
Hmm.
because we may not have we may not have the physiology necessary to understand that language.
And we should recognize just how much, and this is a tough thing, it's an impossible thing to quantify, but just how much language and culture have a chicken and egg relationship. Our language shapes our culture so much, and its limitations, um, its very style,
Well, I think a
and
great
yeah,
example
I
of
mean,
that.
you could have people who are aliens communicating not necessarily sonically. They could be communicating with light. They could be communicating with odor. They
Yes.
could be communicating any number. They could be communicating telepathically, although that gets into a little bit of, science fantasy if you get right down to it. And if the communication modes were that different, then the cultures would be so different as possibly to be incompatible.
Right. That's exactly right. Um, some other things. I think no matter what happens, whether they're friendly or not, I think you have an explosion of the arts trying to figure out how to
Hmm.
deal with it. You have poetry, visual art, uh, drama, all of these things are going to deal with this cultural upheaval. And I think you're going to see just an explosion of artistic expression.
I like that.
Um, and you
That
know,
makes sense.
and if they're hostile, then you'll have epic poems about the struggle between civilizations, like you have with the Iliad. If we're wiped out, then you're going to have, or most of us are wiped out, then you're going to have a desperate attempt to try and save whatever culture we have. And
Hmm.
expression in the arts is one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah.
They recently found a trove of that, not recently. They found the oldest library in the world. It's more than 2,000 years old. They recently found a way to read these fossilized scrolls
Mhm.
using AI.
Nice.
They have found a way to virtually unroll them, and then they use AI to read the carbon ink left over. So we're about to have a huge trove of uh, drama and poetry and philosophy and science that we'd never had
Hmm.
access to. I mean, literally, when we talk about the works of Homer, Homer had lots and lots and lots of work, but most of it's lost to history.
Hmm.
Most of it's lost to the fact that, scrolls get destroyed. And so we may, what I'm saying is, if you're in a culture where you're mostly wiped out and survival isn't guaranteed, the drama, the poetry, the visual arts, all of that's going to be very different
Yeah.
than if you're trying to absorb or assimilate a new culture.
Hmm.
And so I think you have this explosion of the arts no matter what happens. And at some point it just becomes a question of how does it survive? How does it work? How do we keep it going? Um, but I do think you're going to find that uh, you may see a destruction of art forms.
Yeah.
Right now, kind of the most technologically uh, complicated art form we have is arguably film. Well, we had this discussion just before we started recording. Film in the world of cinema is very different now
Yeah.
than it was even 20 years ago
Sure. It's
because of
always
streaming
changing.
systems. So it's kind of crazy. Who knows? By aliens could have a system where they implant uh, your fiction directly into your brain.
Sure. That would be cool.
And so you may be able to create stories just by thinking about how the story would work. You may not have to record it ever again in physical media.
Well, that would wreck my writing group. That's for
Oh,
sure.
sure, yeah, that would definitely kill your writing career.
I one question that could have a grim answer. A lot of these questions have grim answers, but
Oh
you're
yeah.
doing well at finding the positives. But we talked last time about economics.
Hmm.
But we talked about economics as practice. We didn't talk about our economics as philosophy. And I think, we live in this capitalistic society, and capitalism has some, whether it intended to or not, and that's an open question, has some strong underlying philosophical underpinnings. And some of them, and they come in different flavors. But one of them that you see very commonly is this sort of social Darwinist idea. What happens to our culture if we see someone more fit than us showing up? Where does that, where does that leave us if we essentially go into, that it sort of could fuel a holy war the way you're talking about it. It could fuel, a lot of this too could fuel mass suicide. We're done. We're over. And that would be that I think that social Darwinism is so pervasive in our society, that there'd be a desperate scramble for relevance in some contexts, but to a lot of folks, that struggle would be over. And there
I don't
would,
know. I mean, you think about kind of the capitalist ideology, it's
Mhm.
just a change in the competition of markets.
But that's you're thinking of it mechanically. I'm talking about it philosophically because
Well,
people
I don't
people
think you can separate.
absorb.
I don't think you can separate the mechanics from the philosophy.
Oh, I do. I guess that's a big
The
difference.
philosophy drives the mechanics.
I think the mechanics are self-driving, and I think the philosophy is more comes in behind it, and that's part of why I think it can look so different. Not all capitalism is social Darwinism, but a lot of capitalists look at capitalism as social Darwinism. I'm thinking tech bros, folks like that. Others look at
Well,
it
that's but
as
no, hang
fundamentally
on.
cooperative.
That's not capitalism. That's something completely different. That's not capitalism at all.
Well, you would say
That
that partly because of your philosophical underpinnings of capitalism, which you see as more cooperative. But some of the
no, no,
most
no, 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 no. That's not what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
but you got to acknowledge that a lot of the folks who simplify this to social Darwinism are, in fact, some of the most successful capitalists. Granted, they are not being successful capitalists in a pure capitalist system because we don't have one.
Well, that's impossible. You can't have one. You can't have if for any economy at scale, you can't have a pure political economy. It's just not possible. The only political economies that have survived at scale are mixed economies,
Hmm.
economies which incorporate all, different models. But what I'm saying is this: social Darwinism and capitalism are two different things. And what people are doing is people are justifying social Darwinism by using capitalism as the philosophical basis for it. But it's a mask for that social Darwinism.
I would say just the opposite, that people are masking their excesses of capitalism with social Darwinism by casting it, because social Darwinism is essentially a philosophical, it's almost, you could call it a morality, and it's a way to justify morally capitalist excesses by saying, look, we're just following the laws of nature. Don't get on my back.
Yeah, see, that's the whole thing, though. This whole social Darwinism isn't. It's not Darwinism, and it's not
No,
capitalism.
no,
And that's why
absolutely
that's
not.
why I think that's the overlay on top of the other stuff.
Mm.
We can argue both points of view, but I think what happens here is that these tech bro guys are using capitalism as an excuse to maximize their social Darwinism. What they're really doing is fixing the markets rather than uh, adapting to the competition of markets. One of the ways they're fixing markets, and I forget which one of these tech bros came out and said it, but they said this week that people do better when they're under surveillance. And so, of course, we should set up
Very
our political
Palantir.
economic system where everyone's under constant surveillance, except, of course, them.
Right.
They wouldn't need to be under constant surveillance.
Yeah, that's got to be what's his name, Palantir guy. Why can't I think of his
No,
name?
it's not. It's not Peter Thiel.
Thank you. That's who I
It's
was
a
thinking.
different guy. It's a different guy. And the crazy thing is they're really beginning to bring on politicians who are saying who are extending that uh, uh, beyond the idea of just an economic arrangement. They are saying, hey, well, we need to get rid of democracy because democracy's done. It obviously doesn't work. Never mind, they've constantly tried to undermine democracy from the very beginning. And some of these tech bros now are saying it's our moral duty to eliminate democracy
Sure.
because it's stopping society from progressing as far as it should.
Hmm. And I think a lot of these philosophies we're talking about, I think the philosophies are justifying the economics, and you feel more the economics are justifying the philosophy.
Yeah, because
That's really interesting that we're seeing that marriage.
economics, yeah. See, the thing is, and the reason why I say that is
Yep.
it's the philosophy of capitalism that you disagree with that's actually driving what you don't like about it. And the philosophy is that competition is guaranteed to eliminate the weak, which assumes the weak have no intrinsic value in our society.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's not social Darwinism. That's fundamental in capitalism.
Sure, but I think social Darwinism becomes their religion, those folks. Again, you're talking about
I
the
think it's
actual
capitalism that's
philosophy of capitalism,
I,
and
I think it's I think it's capitalism that drives that.
that's interesting. Okay, so we don't agree that those folks have this share those opinions.
No, no. I think they believe in the philosophy of social Darwinism, but that's not what they're okay. What I'm saying is they act like they're social Darwinists, but they believe they're capitalists.
Okay, that works.
That's what
I'll
I'm
I'll
saying.
I'll,
They-
I'll
they-
say
they- they-
that. So, anyways, my whole point was,
yes.
what happens to those people when the aliens show up? What happens when they feel with their screwed up philosophy? Granted, it's totally screwed up, oh for sure, and it's ahistorical. But what happens to those people, of which there are a lot, because our popular culture so reveres people who look at things that way? They I mean, the massive inferiority complex would be devastating.
I don't think so. And I think because they think they're capitalists, they would just try and adapt to the market.
Yeah.
I think they would say, okay, well, how is it I can go and trade? I mean, seriously, obviously, I mean, think about the Ferengi.
Hmm.
The Federation is miles ahead of the Ferengi, I think, in almost anything.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Do they go, oh, well, we give up? No, they try to find markets and profit and negotiations wherever they can.
Well, it's interesting is you bring that up, and I think you're right. I'm working more from that initial culture shock zone. But you're right. We need to be thinking longer term, and you are, and I'm not. What happens as things play out? I get myself stuck when I talk about this question in that initial bomb dropping.
Oh,
And that's
listen,
not a
I
good
think that
place to live.
I think that initial bomb dropping is going to be fundamental in determining, how we respond to that is going to determine long term whether or not we survive an alien contact.
Absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely.
so I don't see these two as inseparable.
Hmm.
I see these two as cause and effect. What's going to happen from this point on? And it's interesting. One of the things we talked about with in the last episode was what would happen on Disclosure Day. And he shows what happens when the broadcast of all this information happens all at once. People stop doing everything in the moment.
Hmm. Well, that's
But
what
I
I
don't
was
think,
saying when I said everybody would miss a day of work.
yeah, see, he doesn't really deal with it. But I see everybody missing maybe a day of work and then going, okay, well, this is the reality now. Let's move on and try to adapt however we can.
Oh, he got you to come around on this a day of work thing, though. He couldn't, I couldn't do it. He did. That works.
Oh yeah, I'd go right back to work because I know people would want alcohol.
Nah, I'd go back to work because I would feel like even though my elected position is essentially an elected bureaucrat, I still feel like people would be looking to elected leaders for some sort of stability.
Oh, they definitely would be looking to
Yeah.
to elected leaders to figure out, hey, help us. What do we do from now?
Yeah.
Our whole world has changed. It's your job to help us figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
So help.
Which is an important perspective and part of our political institutional impact that we didn't actually talk about. So I'm glad you brought it up. When we were talking about economics and politics, is yes, people would look to their elected leaders, desperately for leadership and for setting examples. And we've got some bad elected leaders.
Well, and if we don't respond to it properly, talk about giving up on an institution.
Hmm.
If we don't have the right response almost immediately, then people will begin to question, you know, what happened. People will begin to question the authority we give over to these institutions.
Yeah, yeah,
And that may have a long-term effect in how we respond to our alien overlords,
yeah. Well, that's the kind of thing that
our avian partners, alien partners, not
they
avian.
could be avian. Who knows?
Well, they could indeed. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, and what you're talking about is a recipe for not, well, I mean, we've sort of talked about a religious revolution, but there's the potential for political revolution there too.
oh, definitely. Yeah, there definitely is.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
it just depends on, how well institutions respond.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And, what they bring to us is going to matter. If they come with offerings in hand and they're smart about it, then you'd still have all these cultural reactions that we're talking about. But if they would make a conscious effort and have a plan and could realistically change our quality of life, then eventually they would win us over. I think that's, no matter what they look like or who they are. And I'm thinking of Childhood's End right now, but I think I think Clark was onto something there.
Yeah.
So that's the technology part of it. I think that we've referred to a couple times is they would bring, because they have interstellar travel, at least to some extent, technological improvements. And the way, if they would share them, and the way they would share them could really determine ultimately whether it works. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's entirely possible that no matter what they did, we would reject them.
Yeah. I mean, that is totally possible.
No matter what they did for us, they could
Mhm.
come in and say, this is the Captain Kirk problem.
Yeah.
They may solve all our problems, and then now, we've lost any kind of drive to better ourselves. We could just give up,
Oh, no, we'd still
die
have,
off as a species.
we'd live up on that self-actualization Maslow hill there, I think.
I don't know. We might live on that self actualization Maslow hill because it's not possible for us to do that very easily.
Hmm.
And so, there's the idea that uh, we exist because we must struggle.
Right.
So, what happens if they take away that struggle?
Well, I think we'd find other ways to struggle, some of them destructive, but some of them probably positive. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of history or the end of knowledge, although a lot of people would feel that way. I think life goes on and history and knowledge go on. And the folks who could deal with it long enough to get back on that train or maybe notice that the train never really truly stopped, they'd be okay.
Well, it's a question of just how different the culture is than ours.
Yeah.
Because if it's really, really different, then we might not find any way to survive at all.
Yep. We
If
are.
it's really, really similar, we might not find any way to survive at all.
Mhm.
It's interesting. There's an author out there. His name is Bruce Buena de Mesquita, and he wrote a book, which one of the things he found through his theory about how international politics works and the decision to go to war works is that trading partners are more likely to go to war than uh, uh, countries which are not trading partners.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Huh.
because the competition for resources might sharpen eventually if the competition gets um, intense enough.
Hmm.
Then the people that you would trade for resources would go to war with you more likely than the people you don't have a trade relationship with.
Hmm. Hmm. I
It's the
mean, I
old
would say.
idea that two best friends can't survive it if they both like the same person romantically.
Hmm.
So,
Mm.
and that's kind of an interesting change in the literature. Although that also, if you talk about the state of theoretical competition here, you could also argue that there's a theory out there, and it's pretty well backed up by evidence that democracies don't fight each other. Democracies don't participate in war less, but the more democracies there are, the less war there is.
Well, that's a comforting thought,
So there,
actually.
there are a lot of there are a lot of interesting speculations as to why.
Hmm.
One of those things is that because survival in a democratic system relies on a constant shuffling of priorities and alliances. And so you learn to develop a kind of organizing principle where competition is muted enough to ensure cooperation.
And two democracies both can speak that language and presumably are adept in it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, they have kind of a common system for operation.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that makes total sense. That's a
So,
great thing.
and that's one of the reasons why some Republicans want to take efforts to turn countries which have no history of democracy into democracies. And
Sure.
people will say, well, there's no, there's no precedent for that. And I think Imperial Japan is a great example of where that worked. But of course, it
Mhm.
worked by us completely destroying their economy and reshaping it according to our political economic system.
Yeah. So does the end justify the means? But
That's a good question. So,
that's,
imagine how Carthage might have been different if instead of sowing salt in the earth, they found a way to rehabilitate Carthage.
mhm. Yeah. So alien democracies would have an easier time working with at least the major democracies like the
Oh,
US.
yeah, that's
Mhm.
what the democracies don't fight each other's theory would say.
Hmm.
It would say, well, hopefully they're democracy, because if they are, then we might have a common set of goals and political and economic culture to make us eventually compatible. If they're like the Klingons or the Romulans, we might have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, we're talking, and this is the other part we did get into some last time of who do the aliens talk to and what are the
Right.
implications if they just come and talk to the major democracies? What about everybody else? Where
Well,
does that leave them?
I think it's a good assumption to make because of how radio and electromagnetic radiation propagates in the universe.
Hmm.
They're going to have an idea that we are not a unipolar society. I
Which, of
think they're
course,
going to
is
have an I think they're going to have an idea of who best to approach, because they will have observed our society for a while before they actually come visit.
which is, I think you're right. And that's what always brings me back to, at least in the foreseeable future, they ain't coming. Because I think there's no way that goes well. And I think they'll know that. And I think they'll bide their time until things really change here.
Well, that's the benevolent idea. I think in a lot of ways, the dark forest theory is a pretty good explanation for why we're not seeing anybody.
Hmm.
Because if they are inferior to us, then they will worry about us destroying them. If they are superior to us and we reveal ourselves, they'll just come and take us.
Yeah, maybe. Hope not. That seems kind of grim.
Yeah, well, these are the scientists that just created nuclear weapons. And so they're not big on the optimistic part of science.
Yeah,
At least
true,
some of them aren't.
true. Truth. Um, well, it's been a weird conversation, but it has been grounded in discussions of culture. We've managed to have a weird rambling discussion that never truly left the topic. So I'm impressed with us. But yeah, it continues to be such a rich topic. I don't know. We'll have to talk and see if we want to do another episode on this or not. It may be the thing to do, or it may be time to move on to something else. We'll chat. We'll let you know. Either way, it's going to be cool and it's going to be fun, and you'll only be able to find it here.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Our theme music is by Christopher Piatek.